Favourites of the last year. Yeah, I've just built a new flamenco, which is nice because I've been back in Cornwall for 3 years now, I think, just over 3 years, and I've been pretty much making exclusively classical guitars up till recently, just for demand purposes, nothing else. But I love making flamenco guitars as well, and I've just suddenly had a flurry of. I had an order for a flamenco, and then another one, and then I've decided to make one just for the workshop because I'd sold one, so I didn't have any demo guitars.
So can you tell, for those who don't know, can you tell us the difference between making a flamenco guitar and making a classical guitar, and what the structural differences are? Because I know they're quite sort of...
Yeah.
They look very similar, but they're not really, are they?
No, it's interesting because even if you look at them under a microscope, you wouldn't necessarily see a difference there, you know. But as a maker, for me, a flamenco guitar is... It's a light, generally lighter all round. I build it just a little bit. Maybe the neck wood I might choose lighter in weight wood, less dense wood. Back and sides I generally make a little bit lighter. For the top, there's not so much difference in the top because I build quite light for classicals as well. I tend to take all my tops to the kind of limit and then build them back up with the bracing and then fine tune them. And that's quite similar for the classical and flamencos. Although I'm trying to, I suppose, squeeze different tonal aspects out of each top. So in a flamenco guitar, I'm looking for something percussive, something like a snappy sound, quick response, so you can play fast picado, nice strumming and sort of.
Can you tell us what difference do you find that different sorts of strings make to a flamenco guitar sound?
Strings it's different for every player. I think, you know, really. I tend to use the same string on my classical and flamencos as a standard string. It helps me gauge when I build then if there's any differences in the guitars, and then it's down to the player really. If they, you know, if a client specifically requests a certain type of string, you know, obviously I'll build a guitar with that in mind, maybe. But I mean, really, different people like different strings, tension. Some people like hard tension strings. When I first started playing flamenco, I think I thought you were supposed to use high tension strings. That's what quite a few people said to me. But since becoming a maker, I've more often than not seen it used with more medium or lower tension strings for flamenco even, you know.
It's one of the things I noticed with Hellys' range of flamenco strings is the difference in tonality between the you know, the different gauges.
Yeah.
And the precision. And I think if you've got a good quality string, a good quality player, and a good quality guitar, it's, you know, that whole thing is a very rare combination. If you can find the three together, then you've got a rip-roaring concert.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying about the, you know, about take it to the edge, you know, as far as the lack of thickness, if you like, of the top, that's really important. That really lets out the sort of, if you like, the soul of the instrument, doesn't it?
It does for me. I mean, I know there's makers out there that build much more structurally heavily than me. You know, old makers, old really highly respected makers that would build much thicker top than me and use more bracing. And I've played their guitars and they sound fantastic as well. So it's a really interesting thing of, you know, there isn't a rule to what makes it great. I guess it's different for everyone. I couldn't see myself building like that and it working for me as a maker. But the proof is I've played guitars that I think sound really good, you know, that are built like that. So
how did you get into, making guitars? Did you play before you made, or play because you made?
I made because I played. So I went to Spain to make one guitar, and ended up staying there for just over 4 years. And in that process, becoming a guitar maker, I suppose. I apprenticed for Stephen Hill out in La Herradura in Granada on the coast. I worked with him for just over 4 years before deciding to come back and set up my own workshop in Spain. And I still teach out there actually now with him. So it's a good, if you want to build your own guitar.
Yeah, this is the man to speak to.
Yeah, you can do it with me, but honestly, the European Institute of Guitar Making in Spain is a good place to do it.
And what do you think of the overall standard of guitar making in this country now? Because there was a time when it sort of seemed to plummet somewhat, and it seems to me from what I can see that there's almost like a new generation of young guitar makers who are really inspired.
Yeah, I suppose I've only been making for about 8 years myself, so I can't comment too far back, to be honest. And I didn't know, before I made my own guitar, I didn't know much about the world of handmade guitars, if I'm honest. So I wasn't very knowledgeable about other makers from that period. So all I know is what I've seen. And I've seen a lot of really good makers. I've met them at various festivals around the country, and I've played their guitars and chatted to them, and they all seem full of energy, for making excellent instruments. And the instruments all seem really nice in their own way. We're all different, even if that's the interesting thing. I think if we all tried to build exactly the same guitar and we all had exactly the same materials, they'd still come out differently.
Yeah, I mean, I did see, I've seen this with master classes, when you get sort of really well-known musicians in various fields, not just guitar, but I remember a very well-known, internationally known cellist and also a pianist who were giving master class, and they were trying to teach the student to play like them.
Okay,
and that's just not going to work. I mean, at the end of the day, great musicians, rubbish teachers, but if you can teach someone to make in a way with an instrument that's going to bring out the best in their making ability, that's going to be that you're a good teacher and you end up with a really good student, I guess.
I think so, yeah. And I think for sure, like I learnt with Stephen, and there's a lot of aspects of his making that come through my own making, but he never enforced, he never said I have to build like this, but naturally I followed his schooling, to a point, and then I've got my own ideas from that, but my foundation is very much from him, and I guess all of his students probably have a similar aspect. Their foundation is very much from the Stephen Hill school, or Granada school, in his way of making guitars. But then, as I say, even if they tried to match him exactly, they wouldn't. It just somehow each maker manages to imbue their own kind of energy into guitars. It's definitely some kind of other energetical thing going on.
So, as you know, this today is called Cursed Tuesday at Hellys, because we had, for those who don't know, we've had 4 of today's acts all together who have ended up not appearing. The first one, Julia Lauer, broke her wrist. I think she was rock climbing. Then my group, the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, we were going to play. My brother, who was the flamenco guitarist in the group, broke his wrist. And then we had, who was the next one? Oh yes, then we had Jul Milishka. She's sort of hospitalised with some mad virus in Germany. And then tonight's support act, which is a very pertinent thing to bring up. Tonight's support act, Mason Edwards has apparently got a broken thumb, which happened yesterday. So that's 4 people in one day. So any idea who tonight's support might be?
Well, I've still got all my fingers, luckily. So I will play you a few tunes tonight.
Are you sure you're going to do that? I mean, it's Cursed Tuesday. I mean, will you promise to sort of get yourself wrapped up in cotton wool before 7 o'clock comes?
Yeah, well, how long have we got? 30 minutes?
30 minutes or so, yeah.
Find
some bubble wrap in the back. Yeah,
I won't go anywhere near anything sharp.
No, absolutely.
30 minutes.
No blunt objects or sharp
objects. We better not joke too much.
No,
I'm touching wood. So
we're sitting on wood. Come on, it's fine. Don't worry. So, can you take us through this guitar? Tell me about, or tell us about this guitar.
Yeah, this one.
Show it for the cameras, and also tell us about the woods and the ethos behind it. And it's a great example of one of your guitars, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a beautiful guitar, I think.
I like the back. I mean, I've got a thing about backs. I think the back of a guitar is the sexiest part of a guitar.
Yeah, I guess. I think this is an Indian rosewood, back and sides, and the top, which is arguably the more important thing, is Western cedar. This from Canada. So I use Western cedar and spruce. The spruce is from the Alps. Generally in Europe, German or Swiss or Italian. And then, so the fundamental difference, I suppose, cedar gives generally a warmer, more immediately kind of lively sound than spruce. And
does it have any effect on the sustain of notes?
Not so much. It just a different sound really you get from that. The spruce, you get maybe a little more clarity in the trebles, but not, there's not a good and bad. It's just different, really.
Of course, with flamenco guitars, clarity on the trebles, again, that's sort of real.
Yeah, but a lot of flamenco players love cedar tops as well, because you can get a lot of kind of aggressive power and kind of raw from a cedar top, which is nice, So
again, it depends on your style of flamenco. You've got the sort of real what I call the hardcore gypsy style.
Yeah, I think,
and the sort of more classical finesse flamenco.
Yeah, both styles. I guess there's different players. I guess each player in their own right is drawn to different tonal characteristics that they prefer, And some players would want both guitars, but some players might stick with
Come on, a guitarist wants every guitar. We know that.
Yeah, but some players really have one guitar. I think that they tend to just have, and they would play other guitars, but they wouldn't really feel so great. I mean, I know Paco de Lucia, the kind of god of flamenco guitars, he had a Cedo Negra, which is a rosewood.
I won't tell my mate Paco Pena that.
Paco Pena, he's on spruce, I think.
I think he is, yeah.
Pretty sure spruce, Cypress, old traditional with pegs as well. So, but I'm sure he would happily play a cedar top and
tell me with the machine heads, because you see a lot. I was I consider myself to be quite an intelligent musician because I went from a Renaissance lute where you got little pegs, bits of wood with strings wrapped round them, shoved into a hole, to having peg heads, which are effectively like a 4-to-1 gearbox mechanism.
Yeah.
So they look like pegs, but they're a bit
work
of a cheat.
like machines. Yeah.
My brother, on the other hand, went from playing a standard guitar to a flamenco guitar with pegs.
Has he still got wooden pegs?
And he had a guitar made specifically with wooden pegs in there.
Yeah.
And he, I always laugh at him when we're sort of getting in tune before concerts and stuff like that. Because I'm there first nowadays. I was always 2 hours behind.
Yeah.
But tell us,
why did your brother do that? Was it for the sound or something? Or
well, you'd have to ask him. But I think that it was, he wanted something much more traditional in style, and that's one thing I was thinking about with that, because you've got very beautiful looking machine heads, and I think it's a lovely system. It keeps everything nicely balanced and in tune. But do you find I met a couple of players who swore by pegs as being the only way to do it because they reckoned it affected the tone. Now I've been arguing with people about this. I want your opinion on that.
There's many things I think might affect the tone, but if I'm absolutely honest, I wouldn't put money on myself saying the difference in a blind test. So if there's something that may affect the tone, I'll do it. But I wouldn't like to say it's 100%. It's different. I think pegs are okay as well if you get used to them and they're not really
Get used, not in hot weather.
Well, that's true. Yeah, if you've got changes in humidity going on, it can be a real pain.
It can. Yeah.
Which is where the mechanical ones are really cool. Actually,
absolutely right. That's why I like the peg heads. They've got this really nice look, but they're really sort of practical as well. I like the pragmatic approach.
I think this is a pretty cool thing actually.
So with this guitar, without putting too fine a point on it, what's the sort of bottom line? What do you expect to pay for a Graham Eames guitar?
This is a pretty standard classical guitar, pretty much exactly what I'd make unless someone wanted something a bit different. And this is £3,200. This one,
cheap at half the price.
It's pretty good value, yeah.
It's good value,
actually. But I'm fairly young in my making still, so they go.
Oh well, if I was haggling, 3,150. Come on.
Yeah, well, well, yeah, okay. Yeah.
I think it's sold.
Played, yeah. I think it's a good price. You can pay up to £15,000-20,000 for a guitar, which, they're.
But what do you reckon? You get these sort of what you call the high end. Makes of guitar, where the world-renowned makers that have been doing it for 3,000 years. Things like Fletter guitars, old man Fletter as I call them, and young man Fletter.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one particular maker, a friend of mine who was actually performed at Hellys, came along to my house with this guitar once, and he said, I want you to try out my new guitar. And I had a play on it, and I said, lovely trebles, really responsive, all this kind of thing. I said, the basses are a bit weedy. No, I wouldn't be happy with that. He goes, I just paid 35,000 quid for that guitar.
Was that a Fletter? Was it?
I'm not saying what the make it was. This is going out live, so
interestingly, Fletter was the one I was thinking of when I was saying about makers that built pretty heavily, and I've got it on good authority that he made some quite a lot of guitars like that. But again, I played his guitars and I really liked them. I thought the sound was great.
But do you think that there's an upper limit, effectively, to where you're going into a brand rather than an instrument?
Oh yeah, always. Yeah, I think same with paintings or anything really. But then you're looking at the maybe resale value. You're looking at the historic value of things. Hence, if my guitar may sell for a lot less than another guitar, that wouldn't stop someone buying it maybe in a shop when they're playing the guitars, or buying it maybe commissioning me. But someone that's thinking about resale value, if there's mine and another maker that's been with a more reputable name, they might think, I can sell his guitar on and get more money back for it later if it comes to it. I suppose that's
investment.
something that might come into mind.
I've got one very short, funny one. Was a lute maker that I know actually sold an instrument to a friend of mine about 20 years ago, and then bought it back from him for more than he'd sold it. So he bought his own instrument back, but at a loss. I thought that's quite nice.
Nice.
Don't you do that? Make some cash.
No, I think it's they're good value, but it's also a lot of money. I still understand it's a big commitment.
Yeah, of course.
To put forward, sort of.
But then it's a guitar.
It's something we've built with a lot of love and something that will give. Yeah, and should be loved, So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think guitars and cats are worth spending a lot of money on.
People spend that on a bottle of wine.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely.
Not me, but some people would.
So tell us before we wrap up, because we've got you're going to be performing for us in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Are you nervous?
No, let's keep talking.
He says for half an hour or so. Yeah. Tell us why we should buy a Graham Eames guitar.
They're exceptionally good value. For a young maker who's, I'm actually pretty experienced now. I've been involved in over 100 guitars being made, so I've got a lot of experience there. But being still fairly young, my prices are pretty good. They're going up every year. And
I like that. They go up every
made
year.
in Cornwall. It's always a good thing. And I think really you should talk to me about what you want out of a guitar, and then if that feels like I'm the right person. Because then that's when you should buy one of my guitars.
I think if I was recommending you to, which I do, but if I was personally recommending you using words, I would say that the one thing that makes you stand out above many guitar makers is how personal you are.
Thanks, Ben.
Well, I think it's true. If I said to you that I wanted a guitar to sound a particular way, you'd do your make your hardest to make sure that happened, and you'd do it with quality and style.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely try my best. And then I think also, if you wanted something that just wasn't me, I'd say, I think, you've got the wrong guy. Yeah. You need to go and speak to Greg Smallman or someone in Australia if you want a double top, So, if you want a traditional Spanish guitar made in the Granadan style, nice light, expressive guitar with, a lovely sound, lovely traditional sort of sound, then I could be the guy for you. If you want a more modern big double top that sound, I won't say they sound bad or anything like that, but that doesn't sound like that, but maybe it's got a lot of volume, good for competitions, maybe things like that, but then I'm probably not the guy for you. Yeah.
Graham, we wish you loads and loads of luck. Hope it all goes well this next year. Are you going to be coming back next year?
I don't see why not.
That sounds almost like a yes.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Graham Eames.
Thanks, Ben. Cheers. Thanks very much. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening.
We have, with only 20 minutes before the support act kicks off, who's got Graham Eames tonight, who didn't expect to be playing, but is. I've got with me two excellent musicians, two of my favourites, Philbrooks and Ferraro. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Lovely to see you. Thanks for coming all this way, especially for us. And Mark Palmer, who didn't expect to be here at all until about 48 hours ago.
Good evening, Ben.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Are you surprised to be performing tonight?
Yes, I certainly wasn't expecting it a few days ago.
No, because for those who don't know, Mark is standing in for Jewel Malishka, who's ill and had to pull out of Hellys Festival. Mark was on the list for next year, but we've ended up pulling him a year forward. And so with no advertising and no publicity whatsoever except for a few short Facebook posts, here he is, and he's going to be performing flamenco for us at 7:30. So can you tell us a bit about your career? When did you start playing flamenco guitar?
Well, it's quite appropriate really. I actually started playing flamenco guitar about 20 years ago when I saw a concert in Tavistock by Ben's brother, John.
Oh, so you went and saw my brother play?
Yeah, he was playing in the Wharf at Tavistock, and I was really inspired by that concert, and that suddenly opened my eyes to the fact that Spanish guitar can be really exciting.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I didn't actually know that at all.
Yeah, so I went and had a chat with him afterwards when he finished and said...
so you're a Southfield fan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I said to him, that's really lovely concert, John. Do you do lessons? And he said, yeah, but I live in a little village called Troon in the middle of Cornwall. And at the time I was still sort of finishing off my rock band days. and I was in a band called Men in Toll, named after the Cornish Stone Circle.
I've heard of the band.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. It was split up about 18 years ago. But I was going down to Hale for rehearsals. So I'd go down on Saturday, pop into John's, have a really intense 2-hour flamenco lesson, record it all on my camcorder, and then take it home and practice for 4 weeks, and then go back again a month later.
So let me get this right. You were one of my brother's students?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so most of the flamenco stuff I know was taught to me by your brother.
Well, you better be good then. I'm rarely speechless, but I really did not know that.
Wow.
It's a shame he's not here tonight. I'm not sure. I think he's in London tonight, but he was here last night.
So yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for John, I would not be here now, and I probably wouldn't have the career I have now.
So I have to say thank you to my little brother for the fact that you're able to stand in for Jewel Malishka tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Great. I'm having a wonderful day. So tell us a little bit about the difference between playing what you were playing, which was the rock stuff, and flamenco guitar. And of course, I know you play Latin music as well. Mm-hmm. I've heard you play some sort of quite classical stuff, actually, Spanish music as well. Tell us about the differences.
Yes, I started off doing classical when I was quite young. And then, of course, as everyone does, I became a teenager and thought, I want to play rock guitar now, I don't want to play John Williams, I want to play Brian May, that sort of thing. So I did the rock thing for quite a few years, and, basically until I saw John, and then I thought, actually, this has kind of got the...
So John converted you?
Yeah, he converted me back to Spanish guitar.
That's fantastic.
So then
well done, John.
Then I kind of evolved a little bit. I do a little bit of classical, a bit of flamenco, and I've kind of evolved my own style. And so it's a bit of everything, really. It's a bit of Middle Eastern, bit of Latin, bit of kind of more New Age type music, everything, really. Every style.
Okay. So you sort of fit into the event almost.
Yes, absolutely.
That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, like I did a funeral on a boat in the River Dart last December. So obviously you have to be selective what you play for that.
Have you ever done a bar mitzvah?
Funnily enough, I'd love to, and I actually learned Hava Nagila to try and get a bar mitzvah. Right, I've still not had one.
Tonight we want Hava Nagila as an encore. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sure thing.
And if you do that, I might be tempted to do the dancing.
Yeah, that's
right,
cool.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing you play. I have seen you live before, but not for many years. It's been a long time. In fact, I haven't seen you for many years until tonight.
Oh no, I think it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago.
7 or 8 years ago, yeah. So it was really fantastic. That, Mark's one of those amiable characters that I just sort of got hold of him on Facebook. Said, oh, by the way, can you stand in 48 hours? He goes, yeah, why not?
And I was literally 10 minutes before I went out, so
so I called
it was meant to be.
So the funny thing was, it was about 90 seconds after we'd had the cancellation, I'd managed to fill the spot, so I was quite pleased with myself as well. That was quite an epic sort of day, really. Okay, what can we expect from you tonight?
Okay, well, I'm going to do kind of 2 sets, really. The first set will be...
We know it's 70 minutes for all through, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, two sections to my set. That's what I meant, a set of 2 halves. So, the first half will be the more flamenco-y side of things, the kind of stuff that John taught me. Then the second half is going to be a few kind of popular covers and some of my own material as well.
Well, that fits in really well with what you're replacing as well, because Jewel, of course, does a lot of popular covers and pop music covers.
There you go.
And so on. So that's
maybe something from the Eagles or Sting, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Look, we're going to let you go and get yourself prepared because you haven't got very long, we know, but thank you ever so much. It's really great to have you here. Really appreciate you standing in at a moment's notice, and it's just great to see you. Can't wait for 7:30. Make sure that you're busily texting your friends and saying, hey, come along and see Mark Barnwell playing flamenco, 7:35 here at Hellys Festival. It's going to be great. Big round of applause, please, for Mark Barnwell.
Thank you.
This young man here to my right, wow, this is a crazy guy. I love him dearly. Tell us where you're from. That will also explain a little bit of why you're so crazy.
Yes. I'm from Italy, from Sardinia, exactly, which is an island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. And I actually born in a very small island, which is part of Sardinia, and which is called San Pietro. And the only town there is called Carlo Forte, and it's a fisherman town.
And you have quite a famous festival there.
Oh, yes, we have a festival every year, In the theatre, it's a guitar festival, specifically for classical, but
I know, because I was invited to play there before I retired from my international things.
yes,
And it's
unfortunately.
it's one of the few concerts I really regret not playing.
Yeah.
That's great. So when you're living in Carloforte,
I live in London. I've been living in London about 8 years now, but I travel very much.
But growing up in this small island off a slightly bigger island off the coast of Italy, what playing classical guitar? Really?
Well, my path was very different for a standard classical guitarist or classical musician. So I start, as our friend, I start with electric guitar, and then at some point I play with different bands. At some point I had the passion for classical music. I always had that. So, and then I decided to start classical guitar like that, and then practice very much.
Was it hard to find a teacher down there?
Yes, I started in the high school, and yes, fortunately there was a teacher traveling to the island to teach classical guitar, so that's how I
So to
started.
put this into perspective, it's a bit like living in the Shetland Islands or something like that and trying to play classical guitar. Probably not easy.
Not easy, but at the same time there are some advantages, which is a very quiet place, so you can practice very much. You are not you don't have much distractions there, except for the summertime.
And so who are your influences musically?
I like, although I'm a classical guitarist, I like very much orchestral music. And I'm a composer as well. And actually at the moment I'm more a composer than guitarist, because I dedicated the last years just writing a lot of orchestral music. And so, well, I'm inspired from especially 19th century music composers and also Baroque music. I like traditional classical music.
I know you're quite an expert on Baroque music as well.
Yes. And tonight I will perform my Sweet in Old Style, which is
that's
Baroque,
one of my
Baroque
favourites.
style.
Yeah, one of my favourites.
And yes, so my influences are from Baroque to classical and romantic music, but of course I like also 20th century music.
So what can we expect to see from you tonight? What's your performance? What's your just give us an idea of your repertoire tonight.
Yes, it's an interesting repertoire. So basically I will play mostly 19th century music, which is inspired to opera, Italian opera, and are original pieces for classical guitar written from 19th century guitarist composer, which they stole themes from the operas. Famous arias from opera.
Yeah, this was quite a fashion at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Taking a famous theme and changing it onto an instrument.
Kind of commercial thing.
Yeah.
To write parody on a very famous arias of opera.
That sounds great. I can't wait. Is this your first time coming to Cornwall?
Yes, I've been there once. I've been here once, but not exactly in this town. Around St. Germans, that area.
St. Germans?
Yeah.
That's literally 2 miles down the road from where I live.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that's up country, isn't it? I mean, it's near enough Devon, that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It doesn't count as
It's a
Cornwall, really.
beautiful place. Yeah.
So, but you've never performed in Cornwall?
Never.
So this is your Cornish debut. This is fantastic.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Well, Fabrizio, you're very welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you very much.
It's going to be a great night, and I know he's going to be staying with me, so the wine is going to be flowing at 1 or 2 a.m.
It will be a problem, but I will survive. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We look
Thank you
forward to
very
hearing you
much.
play later. Thank you.